I'm done with the M1. Done with the M1. Done. Welcome back, guys. This is your guy from Granville Tech. As you know, I've made a video on the M1 MacBook Air, and this is my follow-up of that video I first posted. It actually will be my last video on this topic, I believe. What prompted me to these videos was that I had an M1 MacBook Air. I was using it and I left out to do a quick errand, and I came back to find out that the MacBook would not wake up from sleep. It only made a ticking sound, and from there on I never saw my little computer back on again. Now, I did many things to try to get this device back up. I spent hours trying, by the way. We contacted Apple and spoke to the representatives from Apple. We tried their scheme to reset the device. This included different keyboard sequence, things from simply pressing the caps lock button. If it's alive, the button would light green, I believe, and if it's not alive, the button would stay dim or dark. We also tried powering off, holding the power button for so many seconds to see if it would power off it, just in case it was on, locked in an on position. That did not work. And then, with guidance from the Apple engineer, we also tried the Apple Configurator 2 software. We downloaded it and we tried to get this thing going, but yet to no avail. So here I am, and I have come to the place that I believe I will need to return it back to the seller. Now, even after dealing with the Apple representative, I tried for at least a week to get it going. I tried the same button sequences, the same key sequences, the same Apple Configurator system. I connected it to another M1 MacBook Air, a 2020 MacBook Air, through the USB cable that came with the device. It still did not work. I tried many different port configuration. Both of them had 2 ports, so I tried with the front port, with the rear port. Although it requires you to use the port closest to the screen, which I did try, that did not work either. My conclusion now is that the computer is completely dead. I tried other configurations with power button and option button, and none of the which did anything. It does not even make the clicking sound now. So, as I said before, I have come to the conclusion that I will have to take it back. In fact, I forgot to mention that I even looked it up on Google and found a forum where there were a couple people having the same issue with the MacBook as I was having, and they also had to send it back. One person actually sent back his unit 2 or 3 times, and he was concerned about even turning the thing on because he didn't want the same thing to happen for the 3rd time. This is a very inconvenient process of shipping back and forth. Anyway, this was my last attempt of me trying to get this thing on, with deep hopes that it would somehow come back on with the different keystrokes that we would try to use, but no, it didn't come on. Now it's time to send it back, and here is where I take a new look and where I have to travel on a new road and a new experience in getting the computer back to, in this case, my eBay seller. This is where the road began to get even worse. Now I'm already disappointed that the M1 machine broke on me, and now I have to go through this process of getting it back. Now you may ask me, well, would you say the M1 is a bad buy? And it might surprise you that I would say no, it's not a bad buy. Maybe I had one that was faulty. This is a normal process. Any manufacturer has vehicles or devices that they make that would be faulty and would need to return. But overall, I believe the M1 was good. Was I sold on it? Yes. I loved the M1. There were things that I liked about it very much. The M1 was a powerful machine. I would find that it would run my VST software. I'm a musician, that's one of the things that I do. And it runs my VST software much better than even my 2012 MacBook Pro. Apart from this, the M1 was very quiet. It had no fan. It was an M1 Air, the fanless design. It was very quiet. It had no fan and it worked beautifully but quietly. Another thing which was very impressive to me with the M1, it operated like an iPad. In fact, I found myself not using my iPad for days. It acted like an iPad in terms of battery life, where the battery, I remember going for about 3 or 4 days without charging it. It just sipped power while it was closed, and I use it as I would use my iPad, and even to do tasks like Office, running up Office apps and these sort of things, YouTube videos, and it worked beautifully. Even though I did those things, and the battery lasted for a couple of days, 3-4 days even. The other thing that it behaved like an iPad to me was where it could literally run my iPad apps. I invested maybe about $500 worth in music apps, and this thing could load my apps and run them. Yes, some of them closed without my permission, and it didn't run exactly the way it ran, but I was surprised that it actually worked, that I could use the iPad music apps on this device and run it, along with, of course, other iPad apps I was able to run. And hence another reason why I almost never picked up my iPad. Another thing that it behaved like the iPad was, so that is, A was battery life, B was running the software app, C, it came on instantly. As you open up the lid, this thing was ready to go. It was just ready to go. And finally, where it behaved like an iPad to me, D, it was cool to the touch while on my lap. There were a few times where I would run certain programs and I would feel it begin to heat up. But for other things where my MacBook 12, 15-inch, or even an 11-inch that we have, even a 13-inch that we have, would get hot on your lap while you're sitting with it, just running simple apps that don't draw a lot of power. This MacBook Air just ran beautifully, but in a cool way. It was cool to the touch. You could feel that nice coolness on it whilst it was on your lap, so it didn't have that fatigue. It felt like an iPad. The only thing, you could not touch the screen. Nevertheless, for me and for my needs and uses, I don't plan to pick up another M1. I will rather wait until the second iteration that will go into this. I would rather wait for the second iteration of chips that will go into the other MacBooks, maybe even the 14-inch or the 16-inch, because definitely this will have a more powerful chip. It will have more input and output ports. Not to get me wrong, the M1 was no slouch. It was powerful, but I prefer to wait until the other iterations come out. And also, notwithstanding, by this time more programs will be ported across to work natively with the Apple Silicon processors. This is very important to me because I'm a musician and I definitely will find use for the extra power. So on that note, we have come to the end of this video. I do plan on making more videos like this in the future. I ask for your support. Do subscribe and click on the notification bell, and look forward to see you in some upcoming videos. Take care.